Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I'm just glad you're here. Quick second to thank all the channel members. Thank you, and thank anybody who's come in to check out my knife, my ADC content. Today we are continuing my collection dive. This is case number 3, my Made in the USA case, and this is video number 2 of 4. So let's just get into it. Starting off, which is going to be the Hinderer row. And this is the first Hinderer that came into my collection. I've told this story 100 times, but I was never a Hinderer fan. Long story short, got together with my local buddy Dark Gravity, went to a couple of blade shows, handled this knife, didn't think too much of it. He insisted I carry it for a while just to see what I thought about it. I carried it. I fell in love with it. This is the XM18 3-inch Skinner blade, 20 CV, battle black, which is wonderful. The only downside is it's been hard to find a titanium scale. That's a micarta Hinderer scale. But this thing has awesome action. It is a smaller knife, but with that forward finger choil, especially with this Skinner blade, it just works very well. I grip it right here. But this knife, let me get some paper. Again, the Skinner blade is going to be a little thicker than the slicer, but it's still very slicey. And as the name implies, it's set up to be a Skinner. But it's just a great all EDC cutter. I love the size of the XM18 3-inch. I think it works very well. Just to give you an idea, I don't have my bug out here, but I do have the PM2. So I can show you that it's going to be probably a little bit smaller than the bug out. Let's look at it quick. So right at about a little over 7-inch knife, about a 7 1/8 inch knife. It's going to have a 3-inch blade. It's going to have roughly a 4-inch handle. Where I grab it, it's going to be 4 1/4 inches, right? So it does have the tri-way pivot system, which is Hinderer's pivot system that comes, you can see that little mark there on the flipper tab, but it basically comes with bearings installed. It also comes with phosphorus bronze washers, and it comes with some little silicone washers. I forget what they're called. The little, soft rubbery washers. So you got 3 ways you can run it on 3 different bearings or bushings, washers if you want, phosphorus bronze, the little nylon, or the bearings. And they also carry or work fine with skiffs, 1/4 inch by 1/16, I think is what they are. Yeah, I think that's what they are. But anyway, this is the Hinderer XM18 3-inch. One of my first, it is my first Hinderer, but one of my favorites. I love the blade shape. I love the color. I love the story behind it. I fought it for so long. I liked it so much that I came across and picked up a 3 1/2 inch full-sized XM18. This one is, I've added a scale to it, right? So it came with a G10 scale. It is in battle bronze finish. This is S45VN. Also has a tri-way pivot system. Is a much bigger knife. This is the Spanto blade, which is kind of like a drop point with a compoundish type grind with a stick area right here. But this knife fits my hand like a glove. Probably one of my favorite Hinderers, the full size 3 1/2 inch XM18. Feels just great in the hand. It is, I've sharpened it down to about 19 degrees. I think it comes in at right around 20. If I can get the... But it's a more robust blade, right? It's thicker behind the edge. It's a thicker blade geometry. It will very much cut, but it's not going to be your slicey-dicey knife, right? There's slicier knives in my collection and in this particular little video that we'll see. But the XM18 full size or 3 1/2 inch is an absolute winner. I think it's going to weigh in about the same size as the PM2. just about exactly. So PM2 size, but a good bit thicker, both in blade stock and in overall heft. Coming in right around 8 1/4 inches, 3 1/2 inch blade roughly, 4 3/4, 4 1/2, 4 3/4 inch handle, and where I grab it, you're looking at right inside 5 inches. So that would be from right here to right here is right around 5 inches. So this is definitely a big boy or full-size knife. I think it works very, very well, and that's the Hinderer XM18. So moving on, we come to the Hinderer flipperless Eclipse. So this is also a tri-way system Hinderer. You can see the tri-way there on the little tang, but this is a factory flipper delete. So you've only got the thumb studs to actuate the knife, but it is dialed in, and it also really gives you more of a tactical grip. The Eclipse is kind of the tactical brother of the XM18. If you look at them side by side, they're about the same length knife, but this knife is set up a little thinner, more directly pointing blade, a little bit more tactical. And just to give you an idea, because I didn't do it earlier, the difference between the 3 inch and the 3 1/2 inch XM18. Even though it's a little shorter, it's also a good deal thinner, both in blade stock and in overall body width. But the Hinderer Eclipse, the flipperless Eclipse, may not be my favorite, but it's definitely my second of the favorite, if it's not my #1 favorite. I think the XM18 kind of takes the cake, but I love this knife. I love carrying this knife. I love everything about this knife. It is just an absolute winner. And that is the Hinderer Eclipse. Moving on, we come to the Hinderer Jurrasic. This Hinderer allegedly splits the difference between the XM18 and the 3 1/2 inch XM18 and the 3 inch XM18. It's got a little bit different kind of ergonomic grip in the handle to where it really sucks up in your hand. To me, it feels fantastic because you've got this little dip that comes off where it fits in the back of my hand, which is just a perfect place to grip it. You can choke up on it if you want to. This one's also been sharpened at 19 degrees. It's a tri-way. It is in the battle blue, and it has a titanium battle blue scale. Super slicey. Just a fantastic knife. I've got all these right now currently running on bearings. They're all drop shut, dead nut centered. This one's got an interesting, the Jurrasic has this interesting modular backspacer system, which allows you to take this out with a T6 and it can become a tool. It can also, you can buy different backspacers for this knife. It's again called the Hinderer modular backspacer system. He's got a patent on it. I've seen them that have a can opener sticking off the back. I've seen them that have an extended backspacer part. I've had them that have a little lanyard loop off the back, all kinds of weird stuff. But the Hinderer Jurrasic is a really cool knife. I'm a big fan of it. Just to give you an idea on size-wise between the XM18 and the 3 inch XM18, kind of splits the difference between the two and keeps the original thickness of the XM18. This one's in more of a light stone washed with a like a working finish and a CPM 20 CV blade. I'm a huge fan. Just a great knife. I mean, again, the ergos of this knife are what make it unique in my mind. The size is great for me, but that grip is just dialed in. I mean, I just think it's a special grip. But that's the Hinderer Jurrasic. So moving on, we come to the second 3 inch Hinderer I picked up, and this is the Hinderer 3-inch Eclipse Wharncliffe in 20 CV. It is covered in oil, like all my Hinderers are, because I over oil everything. But this little guy has been a joy. I got the smooth scale for it because I couldn't find the textured, but I really like it. It's got that forward finger choil like my Skinner. It is an absolute slurpy saver and piercer, but it's slicey as the day is long. It's an Amazon package destroyer. It's a cardboard destroyer. Just a wicked little Wharncliffe. I love this knife. It's also running on bearings. We've got this one on regular bearings, but I've got some skiffs inbound for this. So we'll be doing a skiff upgrade on it. I did a breakdown on it the other day to verify what size skiffs it needs, and it uses the same as the originals. But this is the 3-inch XM18, like my original little Skinner, just with a different blade stock, right? Different blade shape. These are identical knives. If I wanted to, I could switch the blades. That's the only difference, right? But absolutely love them. The 3-inch gets a lot more carry time because it is more of an office bug out size knife. And it just works very, very well. So moving on, we come to the final Hinderer in my collection. And that is this little Hinderer half track. The little Hinderer half track is sporting a Lynch deep carry clip, one of his Hinderer clips, courtesy of said Stevie, who picked it up for his McNiece and then decided to not do a modification on it and asked me if I could use it, which I could, and I was very thankful. This one's got a tri-way system as well. It's also got this little fuller that, depending on where you are, you can get a flick on it, a middle finger flick. But this one's running on bearings. This is kind of like a cross between the XM18 3.5 inch and the XM18 3-inch. And what I mean by that is it's a shorter little knife, even shorter than our 3-inch Hinderer XM18 Warnie, but it is full-size thickness, right? So it's just an absolute beast. It's a little chonker. I am an absolute fan of this little chunky knife. It is pokey. I love the way that the Wharncliffe blade angles up, because what that does is, if you look where your point is, it's exactly where that center line is. So whether I'm doing utility cuts, whether I'm doing chopping cuts, whether I'm doing push cuts, pull cuts, whether I'm doing slurpy saver moves, it's very, very effective. Super slicey. Just got a shorter blade, which means I'm not as good of a cutter with a shorter blade. But it is very slicey, very pokey stabby, very drop shutty. Got a flipper on the back. One of the smaller flippers for a Hinderer. Again, it's not a minimal flipper, but when you look at an XM18 that curls out, it's just a little bit more, what would you call it? Low, I'm thinking about a word and I can't think about it. It's a little less obtruse, maybe we'll say. But this guy is actually in MagnaCut. All of these are made in the USA. All of these are made, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not going to guess where the ranch is, but they're made here in the US of A. They're super good people. I had a head break off one of my barrel screws, reached out, got somebody in the shop. They sent one out right away. I actually sent a few. Just great customer service, great people. This little knife is a chunk. It's one of my favorites. Not as slicey as my 3-inch XM18, but what it doesn't have in blade geometry, it makes up for in girth. So, moving on, we come to my SPK Lamia. This is a Friday the 13th, 2023 version of the SPK Lamia. I think it's a Gen 3. It is a distressed black finish. Excuse me. Got something in my throat. With a light milling on the show side, light milling on the lock side. You can see the mill lines on that crew wear blade. You don't see the blade steel until you close it. Then you can see SPK, and you can see the CW for the crew wear on the back. Let's get some paper out, because this is screaming sharp. One of my top 3 or 4 knives in my collection in terms of an EDC knife. A knife that I love to carry, that I love to actuate, that I love to have in my pocket. Again, it's very, very low profile, very much an able, tall blade gentleman's folder that gets the job done, regardless of what the job is, whether it be anything from cutting open Amazon packages to cutting cardboard to self-defense, you name it, right? This blade is up for the task, and it is an absolute winner. I'm a huge fan in the Lamias, in Alex's knives, and this one is no slouch. It's just a fantastic knife. The ergos on it are great. I wish I had my bug out here, because it's probably going to be really close in size to our bug out. Smaller than our PM2. Which means this guy is going to come in right at 7.5 inches with a 3 1/4 inch blade and roughly a 4 1/4 inch handle. So that is the SPK Lamia. It is one of my all-time favorites. Fantastic knife. Glad I picked it up when I could. Glad it's in the collection. And really stoked that I was able to pick this up right after it. And it is also in the collection, and I love it. This is the Koenig Mini Arius. This is the flipper version, but it's the one that I could pick up. Brother Lord Needham made this available to me. He picked up a couple and had one he was going to let go, sent it to me to check out. One thing led to another. I looked at it, and I had to have it, so I was very, very stoked to get it. I don't know why my cutting's so weird tonight. But it's the laser beam, super sharp, M390 blade, done very well. Absolute drop shut, but it's a engineered drop shut, if that makes sense. It just feels controlled. You can hear it go down. I guess I'd call it almost like a speedy hydraulic drop. Perfectly centered. Titanium clip. I love the blue anode hardware. I could do without the lanyard loop, but I think that's part of the stylistic ooh-ah of Koenig. It's got a great sharpening choil. Got a great deep grind here. One of the sexiest knives out there, guys. And probably one of the sexiest or the sexiest USA made knives, or one of them. I love it. Huge fan. I'm glad they came out with the mini, because the full size was just a little bit big for me. A lot big for me. But this knife is perfect. It's a little bit smaller. I mean, they could actually do a Koenig mini or mid-D, and that would be cool too. This is 7 1/4 also. So you got roughly a 3-inch blade. And if you go back from that lanyard hole, you're looking at about 4 1/4, under 4 1/2. If we go up here, we're looking at 4 1/4 to the front. So fantastic knife. Definitely one of my favorite knives in my collection. A lifelong knife, and that's my Koenig Arius. So it's got skiffs in it as well. But moving on, we come to TRM Corner to finish out video 2 of case number 3, which is our Made in the USA case. So this is going to start out with the TRM Shaddow. I do not have the titanium Shaddow. I have the original OG G10 Shaddow in 20 CV. It's got their river lock, which is their version of the bar lock. It's got great detent. It's got amazing ergonomics. This knife is without doubt one of the most comfortable carry knives I own. I love the clip. I love their 20 CV blades. I love how it just hit my jacket. I love how smooth their river lock is and how well it retracts itself. The spring pressure is just perfect, or the spring tension, I guess I should say. I love the way that they've done the titanium pivot. Just a super clean, absolutely beautiful knife. My TRM collection's kind of like the favorite part of my collection because they are literally one of my favorite. They are my favorite USA made knife manufacturer because of who they are and what they make, right? So it goes together for me. And this is the TRM Shaddow in 20 CV. I love it. It is a grill knife. The only thing that would make it better is if it was in titanium. You can't, unfortunately, get titanium scales for this one particular TRM. You've got to get the entire knife, and I just can't justify it because I've already got this one. Who knows what the future holds, but I love the Shaddow. I like the lightness of it. It's a great EDC knife, and it's just a winner. So moving on, we come to the TRM Atom, which is the big boy TRM. And this is, when I say the big boy TRM that's shaped like this. This is their liner lock OG version, 20 CV, super slicey. This is their full size. The Atom's the big guy. So if we look at this next to the PM2, they come in right around the same size as each other. If we get our tape measure out, we'll drag paper over with us because we cut too much shit. But we will find out that she is 8 1/4 inches with 3.5 inch blade and a, we'll say 4.5 inch handle, right? Fantastic sharpening choil, super slicey, super thin, wonderful blade geometry for slicing. This does have titanium scales on it. Great access to that liner lock. These run on washers, so they're very good work knives, I would say. They would be great work knives because they're not going to collect any gradue in your bearings. But huge fan in the TRM Atom, so much so that I picked up its little brother, the TRM Neutron. So the Neutron is going to be more bug out shaped, but guys, it's the same knife. A little different clip screw pattern, but the clips work the same way. This knife just happens to be bug out size, 7 1/8 with a 3 inch blade and a 4 inch handle. So 20 CV, same blade, same geometry, just a little less of it, right? Don't want to spend a lot of time on this little knife, so I'm not making this video forever, but it's also on washers. It's got great action. The detent is cash money. I probably carry the Neutron in 20 CV a little bit more than the Atom, just because the Atom is a longer knife, but they both carry with the same very low profile pocket take up, so they both work great in the pocket. It just depends how much knife do you want to have in your hand, right? And for me, most times, most days, the Neutron's just perfect. If I'm going to a rough gas station and I'm worried about my Slurpee getting stolen, maybe I opt for my 3.5 inch, right? But this is the Atom, the big one, and the Neutron. Which brings us to the last two TRM knives in my collection. And first will be the Nerd. This is the latest Nerd. And then I've got an OG Nerd. The OG Nerd did not have the hole. It was not called the Holy Nerd. And this one was in 20 CV. This one does have a blade hole. I added the titanium scales. Or this one came with titanium scales. And it's in MagnaCut. So this is a little small pocket knife that handles like a much bigger knife. It is, some would call it a fifth pocket knife. I call it a primary carry knife, especially when you're going to the office and you don't need a large blade, or if you're in an area or state, city, municipality that doesn't like large blades. The TRM Nerd is an absolute win. It is a mad win. To me, and I'll move the OG Nerd out of the way, but to me, it is more reminiscent of the Shaddow's blade than it is the Atom or the Neutron. to me, these blades seem very similar. A little bit of that tall, flat grind with that same point, that same tip. But a huge, huge fan, guys. Great little knife. Does a fantastic job. Made in America. TRM are my people. I love those guys and gals. They are so customer service oriented, and they're kind. They're generous. They do a lot for the community and for people in the community that it's never ever mentioned. They're just very charitable, kind people. So this is, again, case number 3, which is my Made in the USA case. This is the second video in a series of 4 to get this whole case knocked out so y'all can have it. I will keep it in a playlist called Collection Dive 2024. And that way, I don't expect y'all to watch this, but if you ever want to go back and take a look, it'll be there. And we've got our TRM Nerd on this row and a half, our TRM Neutron, TRM Atom, TRM Shaddow, Koenig Mini Arius, SPK Alex Steingraber Lamia, our little half track Hinderer, our little Wharncliffe 3-inch XM18, our flipperless Hinderer Eklipse, full size, our 3-inch XM18 Skinner, our mid-sized Hinderer Jurrasic, and finally our full-size XM18. So guys, that is halfway through case number 3, and we will keep it going tomorrow, get it all knocked out the next day, and then we'll move on to some regular videos and eventually jump into case number 4. Guys, I hope you're enjoying these videos. Let me know if you are, if you aren't, if you're bored with them. I can break them up at any time. I just try to keep, once I start a case, I try to just let it flow through so y'all get to finish seeing it. But that is video number 2 out of 4, case number 3. All I ask is please, if you stayed this long, hit the subscribe button, help a brother out, hit the bell notification icon. It really helps me. And then please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Look out for the guy or gal to your right. Look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart. And please choose debate, not hate. I love you all. Peace.